Hello and welcome to episode 157 of Magic Rays of Light, a podcast exploring the world of Apple TV and so much more. I'm your host, Devon Dundee. I'm joined by my co-host, Sigmund Judge. Sigmund, I want to start off this episode with just a quick check-in. Make sure you're doing okay because I know it's been quite a roller coaster week for the both of us.
Oh, hasn't it just? I think you're referring to the Netflix saga from last Friday. Most call it a feature, Devon. Netflix, however, call it a bug. For a brief, beautiful moment, it seemed that Apple and Netflix had put aside their differences and reached a deal to integrate Netflix titles into the TV app. But alas, it wasn't meant to be, and a week on, and I gotta be honest, I'm still feeling it. I'm still feeling it, Devon. Lots of positive has happened this week, but there's just this lingering notion of Netflix being now a dirty word again after we've embraced the service over the last few weeks.
Yeah, it's like a lot of that goodwill just kind of, went poof after all this mess. Are you familiar with the meme of Wolverine from X-Men staring at the picture in his bed crying? Because that's kind of how I feel about this whole situation with Netflix and the TV app. For those who missed it, it was a brief flash in the pan, really, how quickly it all went. Last Friday, I woke up, I think maybe it happened after you had gotten up, but to news discovered by our friend Rasmus at Flat Panels HD, that Netflix original titles were starting to appear in the TV app. And that if you tried to add one to your up next queue, it would then prompt you to connect the Netflix app to the TV app and add it to the list of approved apps in your account alongside all the other streaming services. And so we noticed this, of course, immediately started getting excited. The story started to get out, press were picking it up, and everyone was kind of struggling to believe that it was real because it's something we've been wanting for so long. And everyone was saying, okay, this is what's happening, but we don't know for sure what this is or what it means.
I just, honestly, I thought we could just call it early. Mm-hmm. I was very, very positive. I was just like, this is finally the day. Hell has frozen over. And yes, an integration you've been talking about for so long wanting, was finally here, to the point that, just to give a recap of my experience, after I heard this news, I went and added Squid Game. I clicked to watch an episode, and suddenly I got this notification saying, Netflix is integrating with the TV app. Do you want to share and integrate? I was like, yes, I do. And from that moment, I thought, well, there's years and years of TV shows and films that if they are populated and I searched through, I'm logging all of these series and all of these films so that they're there because I didn't really believe that it was going to be an automatic thing. Some titles were coming and going. Other titles were showing up with 0-minute runtimes. And I thought, you know what? This is super, super early. These hours in which I experienced this kind of to and fro, it felt very much like being a reintegrated Mark S over the hours. Almost stuck like I was in two realities, Devon.
Yeah, I get that feeling for sure. And it pains me to hear the time and energy that you put into cultivating your watch next queue with the Netflix titles. Integration obviously was pulled by the end of the day. I hedged a little bit. I think while I was happy and excited, I didn't want to let myself believe it until there was some kind of press release or, sure, official confirmation. So I added a couple of titles, and I noticed that playback wasn't syncing to the watch next queue. So you could add titles and mark them, but if you watch something in the Netflix app, it wasn't syncing backwards. I was like, okay, I'm just going to keep checking this throughout the day and see, once this latches on, okay, then I'll actually start to believe that it's true. I think the doubt started to creep in throughout the day as the hours went by and there was no official confirmation from Netflix or Apple. No one was coming out and saying, hey, here's this deal that we signed and this great new feature that you're getting. And it feels like this is the kind of thing that, the companies would want to tout as a positive for their customers if it really was true. Finally, after several hours of wondering, is this real? Is this not? We got confirmation via The Verge that this is what Netflix was calling a bug. And I'm going to read from The Verge's article here. Netflix spokesperson Momo Zhao saying that Friday morning's window where Netflix appeared as a participating service in Apple TV, including temporary support for the watch list and continue watching features, was an error and has now been rolled back. Those titles that you so carefully and meticulously added to your watch list disappeared, right?
Yeah. In fact, right at the bottom of the home page in the TV app, you have your recently watched list of logged titles. And I didn't have access to that for about a day.
Oh, wow.
And when it came back, everything that I'd logged from Netflix had gone. Like it never happened. It was a bummer. And, this statement from Netflix, it just, I don't know, there was a jubilation, right? Not just from us, but from Apple TV users the world over who were really, really excited for this integration to finally happen. Of course, there's been a long conflict between Netflix and Apple with regard to this feature and what that pertains to data and user numbers and who wants to share what with who. And there was a real hope that this was the day that things were going to be sorted. But beyond just the ease of access and having everything in that one queue, there is an accessibility take that I wanted to recap from a good friend, Stephen Aquino, who I was very fortunate to meet last year at WWDC in person. Such an asset to the Apple community and such a great take from him from the perspective of accessibility. To quote, he says, "Beyond sheer convenience, the reality is the TV app's watch list feature is a de facto accessibility feature. Instead of app hopping, trying to figure out which movie or television show streams where, it's more accessible to launch the TV app to find it there. This is especially beneficial for someone with cognitive disabilities, as the mental load associated with trying to remember where and how to find a particular piece of content is the furthest thing from trivial. Do it enough and it sullies the overall user experience. It makes watching Netflix inaccessible, if only because it's highly plausible a person has trouble remembering that, for instance, A Man on the Inside is on Netflix." That, I think, is probably the biggest takeaway here. Stephen goes on to state that Apple should just write the fattest check to Netflix and have this be done and dusted. But I don't think it's a money thing. And if it is, then it's probably an easier call to make. And, well, before we go there and what Apple could do, is there a hope that this was just a preemptive launch? Because these things don't happen by happenstance, right? There is code and work that goes into integrating your app with the features from the Apple TV app.
That's the thing that still confuses me about this whole ordeal and what I haven't quite wrapped my mind around. There's two ways this could have gone, and we'll probably never know, but maybe we will. Hopefully we will, but it could be, like you said, this was early, and in a week or two or a couple months, maybe at some kind of event, it'll be revealed that, oh yeah, this was in testing and someone accidentally flipped the switch and people saw it who weren't supposed to. The other way this could have gone is that Netflix did this integration years ago, has been sitting on it, and for whatever corporate reasons that are mysterious to us, have just decided to hold on to it as maybe a bargaining chip, or just as something that they wanted to explore to see if it was possible, but didn't actually want to turn on because they want to, control that experience and the data. And it's just something that's going to forever sit unused because obviously the work's been done, but it's just not something that they want to enable. So that's kind of the negative, cynical maybe perspective on it. And that's the one that I fear is true. But my hope is that, like you said, this is something that just is in the works, that will be coming soon, and just accidentally got revealed. Maybe let's call it a preview, just a little bit too early. That's my hope, and we'll know in time. I guess maybe we could put a date on it and say if it doesn't happen in the next 6 months or so, then we'll know that it wasn't a preview. But that's what I'm crossing my fingers for.
The one hope that I have is that they're waiting for Ted Sarandos to make his debut on an upcoming Apple original series that has already been mentioned by press, but I don't want to say any more to avoid spoilers. And maybe then that's when we get the announcement that all is good between Apple and Netflix, now that Ted Sarandos got his 5 minutes and a few lines in an Apple original. In general, I'm pretty sad about it. I made some changes personally through Netflix. So I did create my own account and I was paying the highest tier subscription. I'm still paying for Netflix, but I'm now doing it as the added profile on a friend's account. So now they're only getting $5.99 a month rather than $18.99 a month, or whatever it is now, or next month, because that keeps going up. But yeah, for now, that tadum sound is pretty much the noise that our hopes for integration make. Pretty sad about it still.
I feel you, Sigmund, and I know it's disappointing for a lot of people, but we like to keep it positive here on the show, and the good news is that there's lots of great things happening in the world of Apple TV as well. That's what we're going to spend the rest of the episode talking about. So this week for listeners, we're going to be talking about the return of MLS and the premiere of Onside, the debut of Apple TV on Android, a new member of the iPhone 16 family line, and we're going to start with a deep dive into the return of Surface.
Set in a whole new world, this new chapter follows Sophie to London as she unravels the secret of her past. Desperate to uncover the truth about her mother's death, Sophie must infiltrate the city's most powerful and secretive family.
Do you know what it feels like to not remember anything?
My mother died when I was very young.
How did she die?
She was murdered. I have to go back to where it all started. With you. With your family.
What do you remember about your mother?
I think the Huntleys were involved with her death.
You can't fight my family. You'll never win.
I need to find out the truth.
From Hello Sunshine, created, written and showrun by Veronica West, starring and executive produced by Gugu Mbatha-Raw, alongside an ensemble cast including Oliver Jackson-Cohen, Millie Brady, and new this season, a recognisable face for Apple TV Plus subscribers, Phil Dunster, alongside Gavin Dreyer, Rupert Graves, Tara Fitzgerald, Nina Sassonia, Jolie Richardson, and Frida Pinto. Devon, give us a quick recap of where we've been and where we pick up with Sophie at the beginning of chapter 2.
Last season, we met Sophie, a woman who has lost her memory after seemingly attempting to take her own life in the San Francisco Bay. The only memories she has of her life are flashbacks to horseback riding with a young woman named Eliza back in the UK. As she tries to put the pieces together and sift through the lies created by her husband James, she discovers that before her memory loss, she was living a double life under mysterious circumstances. And that's where we pick up with her at the beginning of season 2. Now under her birth name, Tess, and still living without her memories, Sophie returns to the UK to reconnect with Eliza, a member of the ultra-rich Huntley family, and figure out why she was living under an assumed name before her incident. So there's lots of layers happening with this story. You've got Sophie, who when we meet her, she's recovering from this traumatic incident, has no memory of her previous life except for these brief flashes of horseback riding that we spend the entire first season trying to figure out who this person is. And she's just trying to understand what happened to her and what her life was like beforehand, while being pretty much gaslit by her husband, who's trying to feed her this idealized version of their life before her accident. She spends a lot of time trying to figure out how she ended up in the water, the titular surface that we meet again in this second season. But she ends up finding some answers, but really finding more questions than anything else, where she discovers that she's not even really Sophie, as much as, she's trying to discover this identity before her incident. She was already living under pretenses before that. So there's layers upon layers of who she is, but also what she doesn't know, and just trying to understand her own identity in the midst of all of that. And we're just on this journey with her right in the middle of it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the first season. I guess the first chapter is what they're calling it. And, this second chapter, it's more of the same, but different setting, which is really interesting, because I think the first season was probably the gloomiest depiction I've ever had of the Bay Area. This setting at least feels a little more, really probably befit a London setting. The tourist boards don't want me to say that, but that's the truth of it. So my question is, what makes you think this story has a good foundation for a second season? A lot has gone on, and I would say the first season especially quite disorientating.
I would say that's for sure. And part of that, I think, is purposeful to kind of get you in the mindset of Sophie. Part of it just has to do with the nature of what she's dealing with, memory loss, and just trying to piece together your life. I can't even imagine starting from zero, basically, and trying to put together a life. And that's really what we're seeing her do. I love the setting of the first season. I thought it was a unique perspective on San Francisco, and running by the bridge, but having it portrayed in such a different way. I thought that was very unique, and I hope they keep that off-kilter perspective when they move to London with season 2, and it seems like that's what they're doing so far. But to me, the thing that really anchored the first chapter for me and in the beginning of the second chapter has to be Gugu Mbatha-Raw's performance as Sophie. I really enjoy her as a performer. Of course, we saw her on The Morning Show. I enjoyed her a lot in Loki, which is a MCU series on Disney Plus that she did a great job in. But this role, I think, really just puts her skill at the forefront. It's a nuanced character. Sophie is not someone that we're even meant to particularly love or root for. She's a character who makes some very questionable decisions. And as we learn more about her, we learn that those decisions didn't start after the incident. There's been a lot of things that got her to where she was at. But while she's a character that we can see the flaws in and maybe even struggle to relate to in the sense of just her perception of the world without her memories and trying to just figure out what's going on, there's an approachability to her as well, a vulnerability that we can see. She is someone who is constantly having to wear a mask and pretend like she knows more than she does. And so to me, I find that relatable in a sense, I think we're all doing that from time to time in a certain sense when we're in front of other people. But seeing it turned up to 11 and seeing the way she has to navigate that and switch between that, I think, again, she's a character that, while she may not be the most lovable protagonist, she's still someone that I can respect and hope for the best for. And I think that really does all go back to Mbatha-Raw's performance. The whole storyline of memory loss and the mystery around it is one that I find compelling too. I love a good mystery, Sigmund. I'm not good at figuring these things out. You remember my predictions for the after party always going horribly wrong. And that's okay. That's a part of the fun too. But I love just seeing the way storytellers deal out the pieces of the mystery in a way that's satisfying to viewers. And I feel like they've done a good job of that with the first season and setting up the second season. So while I do agree with you, the first season was a little, I don't know if disjointed is the right word. I think the word I'd probably use is convoluted. There was just so much happening, and we were just having it all thrown at us in a way that we're in the middle of it, and having to work backwards from it the same way that Sophie is. I think the second season, what it has the potential to do is correct some of those mistakes because it's moving to a new setting, basically a new cast. It's this whole new world, and they have an opportunity to maybe make that storyline a little bit easier to follow now that we've moved on from San Francisco. At least that's my hope.
And you know, I also think that because this will be a show that has kind of flown under the radar for so many people, if you were a fan of Constellation or even Dark Matter, I would say there are like some themic similarities here, right? She's almost fighting herself to a degree because she's relying on people to tell her who she is. And even more so, you know, from the family background now as well. And I'm really excited about this second season, specifically due to like some of the journalistic ideas that are at play here and the speaking truth to power. But beyond that, what else can people look forward to in this second season? And would you agree with me there?
I totally agree with you. I love this new mystery that we're jumping into with the reporter who comes in and says, hey, you're supposed to be my source. Where have you been? And that's a really interesting question to ask someone who has no idea who you are. But again, Sophie has to manipulate and work her way into figuring out what's going on. And it's something between Sophie's mom and this Hartley family that Eliza's a part of, but we don't know exactly what that is. So I agree with you. I think that's a really cool addition to it. And it's an opportunity for us to start to hopefully get some connective tissue between season 1 and season 2, because it feels like we're talking about two different people here. We've got Sophie in her life in San Francisco. We've got Tess in her life in the UK. Clearly she ran from one to the other at one point. Now she's running back, but we don't totally know why she ran, what she was doing in San Francisco. There's still the James of it all, right? Who, you know, he at the end of season 1 seemed committed to following her after everything that they've been through, after, you know, the stuff with the money that she put him through, after all the lies that he's told her. And we get a very brief appearance from James in the trailer, but I'm hoping we'll get to spend some more time with him this season because I'm very interested to see where that whole storyline plays out. But also just the whole entanglement between Tess and the Hartley family, who obviously are very scary in the sense that they're powerful and rich, but they also have that smile on the surface, you know, charity work and all that kind of thing, which I think is embodied most aptly in this new character named Quinn, played by Phil Dunster, who is Eliza's brother. And we get a little bit of him in the first episode. We don't totally know his deal, but I'm excited to get some more time with him as well. Yeah, that whole family, I think the family drama aspect of it and the way that Sophie intersects with them is going to be very interesting. And again, all of this to me, it's just an opportunity to unveil that mystery and really, hopefully by the end of the second season, understand what Sophie's deal really is.
The premiere episodes of Surface Season 2 are available to stream now across all of your screens on Apple TV+. There is an inside look that we will mention in the extras, but I'm really keeping my fingers crossed for a Season 1 recap. As much as, you know, I implore people to watch Season 1, there is going to be some people that want to jump in and follow it week to week like they have been with Severance and others recently. So, yeah, fingers crossed for that, Devon.
Yeah, I love the recaps and definitely looking out for that one, hopefully on YouTube before too long. And if anyone from Apple's promotional marketing is listening, the earlier the better on those, because it's always great to get a primer before the next season. I said we had lots of good news this week, Sigmund. This one is for a different kind of audience than maybe you or I or even some of our more typical listeners. But I think this is one that's going to get a lot of people excited and hopefully be a great growth opportunity for Apple TV Plus in the future. And that, of course, is the fact that you'll now be able to watch Surface, Severance, and any other number of Apple originals now natively on Android with the Apple TV app for Android coming out this past week. It's a very interesting implementation here. Of course, something that a lot of people have been asking for some time, including our very own editor-in-chief at Mac Stories, Federico Viticci, who was recently talking about this in the sense of his Android Media tablet, wanting to watch Apple Originals, but not wanting to use the tv.apple.com in the browser, which, it was a good stopgap for some time. But I think it's high time that Android users have a native way to watch Apple TV Plus, and now they do. Some interesting details with this implementation, I think. This is called the Apple TV app, but it's only a subset of the Apple TV app features that you would expect, especially on Apple's platforms, but even from other TV platforms as well. It includes the ability to subscribe to Apple TV Plus and MLS Season Pass, but there's no purchase library. So if you've got a big library in the TV app on your phone, your Apple TV, that's not going to be able to come over to Android. But Continue Watching does sync across devices, so for any Apple Originals that you're watching, you can switch between devices, even between platforms, and still be able to pick up right where you left off. It does include offline downloads, which is a huge benefit of Apple TV Plus over some other streaming services, and one that I'm glad to see is considered a core feature of the platform and one that continues to carry over. Now, in terms of native integrations, Apple has not halfway done this. If you look at the Apple TV app for Android, you can tell it's the Apple TV app. You can tell it's an Apple app in a lot of ways. It's going to be familiar to you if you're familiar with the TV app, but at the same time, it's not going to feel foreign to Android because it does include some native features, including native Android context menus. When you press and hold on content, that's all going to look nice and native. Picture-in-picture, so you can be, navigating your device and also continue watching as you go. And Google Play billing, not only on Android, but also on Google TV. And this is a new addition for Google TV as well, because before you would have to figure out a way to pay for Apple TV Plus and MLS Season Pass before you download on the TV, and now you'll be able to pay directly through your Google account. So Apple's really going all in on the native integrations here as well, which is probably not surprising. We've seen that with Apple Music and other apps that Apple's done for Android in the past. They're few and far between, but when they do it, they really do go all out, which to me speaks to Apple's commitment to making a good experience for their customers no matter where they meet them. And also, I think, kind of correlates to Apple's commitment to software quality on their own platforms and the standard that they hold other developers to.
Yeah. I think some lessons could be learned from other services, right? I'm really, really happy about this. Now that question is qualmed, right? Why can't we watch on Android? Well, now you can, and now you can subscribe, which is perfect. Whilst piracy is rife everywhere, Android in particular, from my understanding, is pretty much a hotbed for that kind of behavior. So I'm really, really happy about it. I think also, not only is this good for Apple TV Plus, which means, it's not going anywhere anytime soon, which means neither are we. And also, I think as you add more platforms in which you bring your services to, one omission that we hadn't mentioned were the lack of Apple channels right now, but they can build that out and they can make channels available providing they can get those agreements in, much like Amazon Prime Video do with their channels, right? Very much the same system, so I can't see that being an issue further down the line. But in terms of innovation, I think if you can bring new features and you can bring them everywhere and start with your own platforms first, then you're going to see more and more people latch on to those ideas. I think one of the biggest issues in terms of innovations that Apple have really tried to push in this space was that they were really limited to a small install base. As much as we love the Apple TV hardware, we want them to be in every person's living rooms, but people make different choices for different reasons. So the more places they can integrate some of this innovation, the more chance we have as users to get service providers to jump on board. And that is only a good thing.
Absolutely. This whole world that Apple has jumped into, it's based on relationships, and it's a different world from just technology and making phones. There's relationships, there's deals that have to be made. It's just being a good citizen in the world that you're inhabiting. And I think this is a great step in that direction. And again, I think the way that Apple has implemented this, I think it's just a great example for others of how to really go all in on a platform and make the experience as great as it possibly can be for your users, including foldable support, which is absolutely wild to me that they included that. But you have to imagine that whoever was making this, it had to be a fun experience for that team to get to really dive deep on the Android platform and see what's possible there and how the TV app could adapt to it. So this is nothing but positive for those who've been clamoring for it. We're happy for you. Hope you enjoy it. It's not something I'm going to personally be using day to day, but I'm glad that it's out there, and I think it's great for Apple and great for Apple TV Plus as well.
Yeah. The promotion was very, very strange to see Apple TV Plus now on Android all over Apple socials. And one thing I will say is it introduced to me the most satisfying example of using cleanup with Apple Intelligence on the new iPhones. And we no longer have to mention this again, Devon. Let's talk about a new product, an Apple launch. We didn't know what it was going to be, so to speak. There were some rumors. There was some interesting conjecture about, hey, maybe Netflix has come to Apple Vision Pro, and that's why they rolled things back. And, maybe we're going to hear about some new home devices. All of that's to come, I hope. But we did get a new member to the family of iPhones.
Yeah, not even just that. A new member of the iPhone 16 family. Apple saying that they are completing the lineup with the iPhone 16e. I didn't realize the lineup wasn't complete, Sigmund, but it's an interesting little tidbit the way they communicated that. Of course, this is the successor to the iPhone SE that's been running for several years, kind of in tandem with, but also off skew of the main iPhone lineup. It's always been the lower cost iPhone, I would say, the budget iPhone, as some people have called it. We'll get into whether or not that's still the case necessarily. Let's break down some of the details of this new device because they're very interesting. The iPhone 16e features a 6.1-inch OLED display with a notch for Face ID, so not the dynamic island, going back to the old notch silhouette from the iPhone 10 days. Features an A18 chip with a 6-core CPU, 4-core GPU, and 16-core neural engine capable of running Apple Intelligence. And the new C1 modem, Apple's first cellular modem and the most power-efficient modem ever on an iPhone. We've been hearing for a very long time that Apple's moving into the cellular modem business, something they've been developing, and we've heard rumors about, and this is the first device to actually feature it. Of course, we don't know exactly how this works in the wild yet because people have not published reviews and hands-on and had a chance to actually try it out and talk about it yet, but I think that's a big step for Apple to be moving into the modem business. The battery life on this device, which Apple claims is due in part to the power efficiency of the modem, is up to 26 hours of video playback. That's way past the iPhone SE. It's rivaling, I think, even the iPhone 16 Pro this year, which is pretty incredible battery life for a device that traditionally has been thought of as being compromised in that way, and one that people have to really think about. To not have that as a factor, I think that's really cool to see, and it's just another benefit of Apple Silicon continuing to move more and more into more parts of the device. It features USB-C wireless charging, though not MagSafe. Key 1 charging, the traditional key charging. People are saying that they're going to buy cases that add the magnets back in to at least help line up with MagSafe chargers, but it's still going to be that slower 7.5 watt charging and not the faster charging of MagSafe or Key 2. It also features an action button that enables visual intelligence, so no camera control, but you will be able to use visual intelligence using the action button if you want to, or a new toggle in the control center, which is a great addition. This device features no ultra-wideband or thread radios. Those are a couple things that got nixed in order to save some money. Of course, we talk about ultra-wideband on this show all the time. I think it's a little bit disappointing to see a part of the main line being put out without the ultra-wideband, because we just want to see it put out more and more and used more throughout the ecosystem. But that's one of the sacrifices that's made. The camera, though, this is intriguing to me, and one that feels a lot less compromised than the iPhone SEs of old. It's the 48 megapixel fusion camera with integrated telephoto lens. So it's just one lens, but of course in the camera app you'll get 1x and 2x. You'll be able to crop in a little bit if you need to. Video recording up to 60 frames per second and 4K with Dolby Vision and spatial audio. It's taking all those technologies and bringing them down to the quote-unquote low end of the line and really making those just kind of the baseline for iPhone videography now, which I think is pretty incredible. Now, in terms of pricing, this is controversial and something that we've heard a lot about. The iPhone 16e now starts at $599 for 128 gigabytes in black or white. It's available for pre-order today with deliveries beginning next Friday, February 28th. So Sigmund, with all those details in mind, what do you think about this announcement and what it means?
So, I think this is going to be a perspective that I think a lot of listeners will gravitate towards. Having two grandparents that are still using the iPhone 7 kind of model of the iPhone with the home button, I'm sad to see the home button go. Mm-hmm. That said, my fears were qualmed a little bit because they also are using iPads and they're getting used to the gestures on the bigger screen. My concern moving forward is when it is time to upgrade their phones, that they're going to be forced into learning these new gestures that are at least new to them. And that may cause some difficulties. So I'm going to make those iPhone SEs last as long as possible. Thankfully, Apple do a great job with regard to security updates and that kind of thing. So brilliant stuff there. I'm a little bit concerned about a couple of things. I think there is a little bit of confusion here in terms of where this new iPhone 16e stands in the lineup. There is a fair bit missing here. One of those things, MagSafe, which is surprising, although of course fixed fairly easily with a MagSafe case. If all you're wanting to do is attach your phone with magnets and not have it do anything super fun. I think that's also a little bit sad in the sense of I was really hoping that we were going to see more innovation from MagSafe with regard to, two-way data and all sorts happening through the MagSafe connection. Not having your entry phone have MagSafe, I think kind of adds a little fear to those hopes that we had for its future down the line. We'll have to wait and see if this is just a slight detour on that promise. But the other thing is, I think the price, I think $499 would have been great. I think that would have been a really good price point for this phone in particular, in comparison to the iPhone 15 and the iPhone 16. I do wonder also the naming convention of this. It's the iPhone 16e, so are we expecting there to be like a yearly refresh given that this is the newest member to the iPhone family lineup?
That's the question, isn't it? It's almost implied in the number 16 that it's going to be some kind of iteration, that they want the number attached to it over time, which of course signifies, if you could do the math, what year it came out, what kind of processor it has, what it's capable of. And so with the iPhone SE name, you could mask that, and it was kind of standing outside of time. The device looked older, but you couldn't really tell how old it was in terms of, the internals and things like that. Whereas if they don't update this one next year, then they're going to be out of step with the main iPhone line. If they wait 3 or 4 years, as they've done in the past with the iPhone SE, it could start to get really out of step. So part of me thinks that this might become an annual or maybe at least biannual update in the spring, which would be cool. And then at the same time, I look at the Mac lineup with the processors and the way that they're all out of step in so many ways. You've got some that are still, Apple's still selling unofficially through Walmart M1 devices, while M4 is the flagship. So part of me also thinks maybe they're just a little bit more comfortable with the mishmash at this point, while also offering extreme clarity on what exactly people are getting. I don't know. I don't know if maybe the people who are buying the iPhone 16e, if they even know what the 16 means, if they care, if they know what year the iPhone is on. I mean, I get mixed up sometimes. It's like, which one do I have again? So, and I live in this stuff. So, maybe it's a moot point. We're reading too much into it. But personally, I would love it if Apple kept this up going yearly, kept the processor updated, continue to bring some of those higher end features down the line over time, give them a chance to iterate on it more, and while maybe, keeping the price at least the same, if not lowering it. I think that'd be a cool approach, but I'm not sure. What do you think?
Honestly, my only real thoughts on this, because this isn't a product that is aimed at me, right? My only real thought on this is not the budget phone that I was hoping to use as an accessory for my Apple TV when it comes to FaceTime, right? Ever since that permanent camera for continuity camera option, I've kind of, been looking for something. Now, I think the thing we really want at this moment in time is an accessory with the 48 megapixel fusion camera. I really love the innovation here in the sense that rather than having a load of cameras and triggering tryptophobia, I think that's the second week we've mentioned it. You've got that one camera which is able to, switch between its normal camera and a telephoto lens, which I think would be great for continuity camera in a living room setting. The thing is, I just think we should be waiting for a dedicated accessory. But this does open the door to what is out there. And I think, if you're looking for a phone for a family member, or maybe you're looking for a phone that's got a Connect for continuity camera and you can just use that permanently, there are a number of options. Of course, continuity camera is available with the following: iPhone XR or later, the iPad 8th generation or later, iPad mini 5th generation or later, iPad Air 3rd generation or later, iPad Pro 11-inch, the 1st generation or later, and of course the 12.9-inch variant of the iPad Pro 3rd generation or later. So there's plenty of options for continuity camera. I'm going to say it once again, I think this should have been priced slightly lower. That's what I would have loved to have seen. I do think it adds something beneficial to the iPhone lineup, but not everything is aimed at us, Devon. And so, for the first time in a long, long time, I can say I haven't ordered one.
Oh.
Now, last week, as I was editing the podcast and listening back, I felt a little bit of judgment from you, Devon, when I announced that, yes, I have ordered some Powerbeats Pro 2. And when I went to see The Gorge at Battersea in a theatre with Jonathan Reed, he also expressed a little bit of concern and a bit of a groan where he said, "Oh, Sigmund, you haven't." And, well, I did. And I got to say, it was a positive experience.
Well, on my part, if I sounded judgmental, it was probably more covering up jealousy because, yeah, I am very jealous of these and tempted by them. Now that you've had a little bit of time with them, though, you said it was a positive purchase. What are you thinking about using them day to day?
I love them. And I don't know if this is healthy with Bluetooth and Wi-Fi signals and everything going on. I leave that to the conspiracy theorists and the tinfoil hat brigade. But I wear like AirPods Pro until the battery goes in them and I have to pop them back into the charge case and wait. And I just don't need to do that with the Powerbeats. The hilarious thing is, even though it only takes 5 minutes for the Powerbeats Pro to charge after 8 hours of consecutive listening, I'm using the AirPods Pro as my go-between at the moment. Now, There had been some mention of the Powerbeats Pro 2 by some reviewers as being the successor in a lot of ways to the AirPods Pro 2. I do not see them in that way. There are a few downfalls before I get to the positive. First off, initial fit issues. My initial thoughts on these were that they were terrible because I had the wrong ear tips in. When you unpackage the Powerbeats Pro 2, they're already set with a pair of earbuds, and I didn't think to change to the XL tips. But once I did, everything cleared up. Initially, I thought, oh no, have I got like a bad pair, or is this just a really terrible product and it's only me that can hear this? No, the Powerbeats Pro 2 are amazing, very comfortable. I'm not getting the ear fatigue I'd get with the previous generation. Sometimes actually they've stayed on my ears and I've forgot that they were even on my ears, which a lot of people rolled their eyes at, but that is something that genuinely happened to me over the last week. Noise cancellation, not on the same level as AirPods Pro 2. Clangs at the gym, they do come through along with other high frequencies. I noted the projector noises, or maybe even the NAS server noises that are blocked out with AirPods Pro 2, or even better still, AirPods Max. Powerbeats Pro 2 didn't deal that well with. From a accessibility point of view, and being able to get replacement ear tips, not as easily available as AirPods as of yet in store. So, if for whatever reason you lose tips on your AirPods Pro 2, you can go into store and you can pick up a pack, right, in the size that you need. There is no option for the Powerbeats Pro 2, and because you only get one set of tips for each size, you can't really go and use other sizes because, again, they have such an effect on your experience using them. That's kind of where I'm at. I did do the crazy thing of kind of mix and match. I needed the quicksand coloured Powerbeats Pro 2, but I needed the orange tips. So I found the way, and now they perfectly match, to a degree at least, my Apple Vision Pro, which means I can be cocooned for 8 hours and look good doing it.
I love the color matching, Sigmund. You've got your Beats that are color matched to your Vision Pro. You've got your Magic Keyboard color matched to your Apple TV remote. You're just out here mixing and matching and really setting us all to shame, but that's really cool. And yeah, I love how the orange tips match the orange accents on the Vision Pro band. And I'm happy that they're working out so well for you. You were actually wearing them on our call before we got started recording. They look awesome. Now, one thing you haven't talked about is the heart rate monitor inside of these. Is that something you've tried out and found any use for?
I have, but I think it's a different use from anyone else. Something that I really love. I think I've bemoaned about the lack of integration with the fitness app and workouts, because really, these are a fallback. And once again, they offer passive heart rate monitoring, right? So they're only going to work when you're within a workout. Now, one of the many apps that do integrate with the Powerbeats Pro 2 is an app called Open, a meditative app. Now, a lot of the time, I watch films and TV to get away, and I've always treated my entertainment as meditation in some shape or form. And so it was very, very funny that when I mentioned that I was going to pick these up, friend of the show and Shortcuts guru Matthew Casanelli said, "I expect heart rate reports for your favourite movies." Now, I know this was a joke, but I wonder how movies and shows affect that. And so I'm adding my heart rate as a new review barometer. I'm doing that by checking out the time on the show or movie and setting that as a custom open meditation. And that's great, but I'm going to put out a plea there to the developer community. whether it's a tracking app like Sequel or Sofa, or maybe there's like some cross-pollination that can be done between fitness apps and media apps. That's what I want to see. I want to see a tracking app mixed in with fitness sensibilities. Could be a new genre as we know it, Devon.
That is interesting. I mean, there are films and TV shows that definitely get my heart racing. Some of them, it's more like spikes, like jump scares, but some it's like elevates your heart rate the whole time. So yeah, that could be very interesting. You've got your tomato score, ratings, whatever, and then next to that, you've got what it's going to do to your heart rate so you can expect it. I love that idea. I think that'd be very cool. We do have a couple of other apps to talk about as well this week, starting with Amazon Prime Video for Apple TV, which was updated with a bunch of enhancements that make it a better platform citizen. We always love to see that. These include touch gestures for scrubbing during playback and scrolling while browsing, auto-populated search results as you type, and accessibility options like voiceover and hover text. And I haven't had a chance to have hands-on with this. I'm not actually currently an Amazon Prime Video subscriber, but I remember when I was not being a big fan of the navigation or playback on the app, and it's kind of amazing how far the app has come in such a short time. And hearing about these enhancements, seeing it become more integrated with the system, I think next time we do that big chart rating the different streaming apps, I feel like Amazon Prime's probably going to rank a little bit higher than it did last time.
Yeah, and I think it's a key indicator of how serious Amazon are taking the user experience. We've heard Amazon taking the entertainment side more seriously with the capture of MGM, and now this week they finally have creative control over the James Bond franchise. So there's lots and lots going on there, but I never really thought that they were going to take the user experience as seriously as they have. And I think that's something Apple should keep an eye on as well.
For sure. Yeah, user experience is very, very important on any tvOS app, and any movement we see there and progress is a win for everyone who uses it. An app that's a big win for people who like to share their movie and TV show reviews is one that came out a couple of weeks ago from our colleague over at Comfort Zone, Matt Birchler, who released his Quick Reviews app for iPhone and iPad. Now, this has been a web app for quite some time, and you may have even seen some of these on social media. If you've ever seen those kind of rectangular reviews with the bar across the bottom with the rating, with the poster and the information off to the side, those are generated by Matt's website that he's been running for quite some time, and just last month decided to take the plunge into iOS development and turn it into a full native app. And it's really amazing what he's done with this thing. If you haven't tried it, it's a way to easily create nice-looking review images for things you watch, read, play, and listen to, and then share them on social media. And the reviews feature a poster image, title, metadata, which you can change. Maybe you could throw in your beats per minute there if you want to. And then you can include a short review and a rating with a customizable scale. The app also saves your review history so you can go back later and see what you've watched. A problem I'm constantly trying to solve, Sigmund, because I'm on a podcast where I share recommendations of things I've watched, and sometimes I forget. So it's great having another way to track that and very easily go back and see what you've watched. And those are all free features of the app, but it also includes a premium tier that incorporates Magic Mode for automatically importing metadata and posters for films and shows, letterboxed import, and unlimited review history. And that premium subscription is $9.99 a year. I love what Matt has done with this app. I've tried quick reviews on the web before, and for whatever reason, maybe I just didn't remember to go to the web to create those, or maybe something in my mind just wanted a more native experience. But I think this might be the roadblock for me for sharing more reviews. You know, I write in my journal all the time about things that I watch and how it makes me feel. Of course, you talk about it here, but I don't put those on social media all the time. And I love this format for it, this way to very quickly share a rating and, you know, just a paragraph or two about what you liked or didn't like about something. I think it's a great way to do it. The app, especially with Magic Mode, makes it super easy to make these things look nice because it'll pull the poster from the movie database for you. Even offer like a color palette that kind of matches colors from the poster. So this is a very cool app, of course, from someone that we're familiar with and want to support. Matt, someone I've been following for quite some time and happy to be able to call a colleague. So if you're someone who likes to review films, especially, or TV shows or video games and books as well, this is one I highly recommend. And I also would give a shout out to the Letterboxd support, because if you're someone who reviews films on Letterboxd, it has this really cool integration where it can automatically pull in those reviews that you post to Letterboxd and generate those images for you. So you can write your review on Letterboxd, but for other social media, you can then have the quick reviews image and the history to go along with it. So very well done. An app that I'm really happy to have and tinker with, and it's continuing to get new features constantly. So shout out to Matt and all the great work that he's doing there.
Yeah, a superb app. And I will just say, Letterboxd, not a platform that I've really jumped into, because I've been waiting for that TV show integration that they teased and got a lot of backlash for. And I don't know, maybe they were just like, oh, okay, yeah, we're not going to go down that route. And I'm kind of sad about it, because a lot of what I watch is TV as much as I love films. I probably have way too much time on my hands, Devon. That said, this week, we not only got release news for a number of highly anticipated Apple original shows that we're going to get into in just a moment, but we also got our first look and the first trailer for Dope Thief. Two lifelong friends in Philadelphia pose as DEA agents to rob small-time drug dealers. It's the perfect grift until they choose the wrong mark and become targets of a massive narcotics enterprise.
We're posing as feds. We were ripping off drug dealers. But we went to the wrong house.
These guys are gonna come after us, man.
We can't just run. You got Sherry. I got Teresa.
This isn't us.
We weren't killers.
The only people that can stop this is me and you.
Created and executive produced by Peter Craig, famed writer of The Batman, The Town, and even Hunger Games, Mockingjay Part 1 and Part 2. Executive produced by Ridley Scott, who also directs the first episode, and based on Dennis Tavoyer's book of the same name. Quite a cast here, Devon. Who are they, and what did you think of this trailer?
The cast is one that I am particularly excited about. It stars Brian Tyree Henry, Wagner Moura, Marin Ireland, Kate Mulgrew, Nesta Cooper, Amir Arison, Dustin Nguyen, and Ving Rhames. This trailer, I was so excited for this series as we've heard about it. Just lots of great behind-the-scene little tidbits that we've gotten here and there. But finally getting to see just a glimpse of what we're going to get on screen, I'm so pumped for this series. I've been a fan of Brian Tyree Henry since he was on Atlanta, and I loved his performance there. He has incredible range, and he really just has such raw emotion to his performances, as we saw in the Apple original film he was in, Causeway. And so I'm excited to see him as the lead of this TV series. I think seeing him in this kind of situation is going to be very interesting. You know, these are guys who were running a con, basically, thought they weren't really hurting anybody other than, these people who I think we can all agree are doing some pretty bad things. So they thought they were maybe even doing a little bit of like Robin Hood kind of thing. And they just got in way too deep with this group they never should have crossed paths with. And in the trailer, you can see they've got people they're attached to who are now in danger. And they're just in this situation where they're being forced to go to lengths they never thought to just to survive and to keep the people they love safe. So this looks really, really appealing to me. It looks like a thrill ride, and I really just can't wait to see it when it comes out on March 14th. What do you think about it?
What I really like about this also is not only the dramatic element to this, but also the comedic timing of Wagner Moura and Brian Tyree Henry, right? There is a comedic element to this, very much, I'm going to say in the vein of like a Breaking Bad. And this is where I think this is a really, really interesting addition for Apple. I was thinking, watching this, okay, I can see certain elements to like a Vince Gilligan style crime series And Vince Gilligan, the famed creator of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul and others, is going to do something completely different over at Apple. And no doubt we are mere weeks and months away from learning more about that project. A big fan of The Town and the other work from Peter Craig. Another Scott Free production, which honestly, I feel like everything that's come to Apple through that deal has either hit a home run or found a mainstream audience, a la Prime Target. Number 3 in the Apple TV Plus list of viewed original series. Super excited for this. A bit of a muted color tone, which I think really works well in a film like The Town. It's going to be interesting to see how that works over multiples of hours and whether or not that style is visually stimulating enough. I think The Penguin on Max earlier this year maybe answers that question, and that question is likely a yes. But yeah, Dope Thief, March 14th, so just a matter of weeks away, and I for one cannot wait to talk about it. And one thing I have been talking about a fair bit on socials is another little glimpse at something coming in the future. Not our first glimpse, but a more in-depth glimpse at the upcoming F1 movie from Jerry Bruckheimer and Joseph Kosinski. Really, really cool 3-minute behind the scenes. One thing I noted, there's a moment where Joseph Kosinski is pointing out to Brad Pitt where all of the cameras are rigged and points out 7 different cameras on this particular car. Now, reading back on some of the interviews that came late last year in discussion of the F1 film, which was titled Apex in its working title, Joseph Kosinski mentions that there's up to, I think, 16 cameras that can be rigged to one car. Whilst a lot of people pointed out to me that yes, Grand Prix from 1967 did something similar, what's being achieved here is pretty special from a technology point of view. They're using the same 6K cameras that were used in Top Gun Maverick, which are these custom Sony Electronics cameras that are like deconstructed, so you don't have to have the whole body in there. And then for the first time, these same cameras are being used with these PTZ-like capabilities, so you can pan, tilt, and zoom. Very, very cool. So you can get a wide array of shots with some of the cameras that are mounted wider on the car. And honestly, it just blew my mind. There's this one moment where they're waiting for this exact moment to pan, and it works. And every kind of pan motion must have felt like an epic victory here. To monitor all of those, you need a number of monitors. And kind of going back to what we were talking about with Vision Pro and pulling focus and just being able to monitor in a video village, each one of those monitors on this F1 set cost a steep $10,000.
Wow.
So that gives you an idea as to the benefits of what we were talking about last week as well. The one thing I will say is, whilst this film is no doubt going to get our hearts racing, and yes, I will be logging it, the potential of a feature-length documentary to come to Apple TV Plus whilst the film is exclusively in theatres is pretty high on my anticipation list, if it were to happen. And I think also just because of every high stake involved behind the scenes, I think it might just need to come with a health warning.
Yeah, I love the idea of a behind-the-scenes documentary to use as promotion for the film while it's in theatrical. That's something that Disney does on Disney Plus all the time. I'll open up the Disney Plus app and it'll be a big banner of whatever movie's currently in theaters. Like, oh, I can watch that here. And no, it's a special look, but it's a great way to remind you about the film and remind you, hey, you should probably go get tickets to that. But this definitely seems like a great candidate for that sort of treatment, especially with the team behind it being Joseph Kosinski and Jerry Bruckheimer.
Yeah, and if they weren't busy enough Kaczynski and Bruckheimer are also eyeing a reteam on a UFO disclosure themed feature, which is interesting. Deadline, who we'll be mentioning a number of times in this episode, reported earlier this week that an as yet untitled project is akin to a UFO disclosure themed take on All the President's Men, the classic 1976 political thriller from Alan J. Pakula. At least 9 bids for this next project from the duo have come in for the project from everyone. Amazon, Skydance, Lionsgate, Sony, Warner Brothers, Paramount, 20th Century Fox, Apple, and Universal. And I looked at this list and I thought, okay, other than Amazon, Apple have already partnerships in place with Skydance, Lionsgate, Sony, Warner Brothers, and Paramount, as well as Universal. So I've got my fingers well and truly crossed, and I'm feeling pretty positive about this potential capture.
For sure. I'd love to see what their take on that subject is. Probably a little bit more grounded than what we tend to see on that subject. And I think it speaks to Apple's confidence in F1 that they're in this bidding war for the upcoming film as well. So that gets me excited for this summer too. So lots and lots to get excited about, not only in theaters, but also on Apple TV Plus. As you mentioned before, we got several release dates this week for upcoming Apple originals. Let's start with Bear Brick, the upcoming animated comedy series from DreamWorks Animation and Dentsu, which will premiere globally on Friday, March 21st. The 13-episode series features upbeat original songs from executive music producer Timbaland and aims to empower kids and families to embrace their true selves through the universal language of music. A first look at the series is linked in the show notes. Now, of course, this is based on a series of toys, so with the animation, that's kind of what they're going for here, and I think it looks very cute. Cool to see the original music from Timbaland involved there, and I'm all for anything that helps kids embrace their creative side through music. This is one I could definitely foresee playing in my house before too long.
I got to say, I'm very, very happy for parents out there that are looking and searching for something new for their kids to check out, and I think this sounds like it's got a really positive message. You know, it's about a band basically trying to find their way and also encourage other people to find their own way. And the interesting thing about Bear Bricks, for those that aren't aware, they are very much like a template, a bit like Funko Pops, in the sense that they can be designed any way whatsoever, except it is literally whatever's painted on a bear brick is their guise or their personality, right? And there is an element to this series that talks about that. I did once have a bear brick by cause, and this is the other thing. Bear bricks, they are very mainstream to a degree, but if you're a collector of bear bricks from specific artists, they can get super expensive and they come in different percentages. So your 100% is tiny and it goes all the way up to like 1,000%, like literally life-size bear bricks. Pretty crazy, different textures as well. But my gosh, do not research it. Save your money, please, and enjoy the show.
I had no idea all that went into those toys, but that's very, very cool. And it sounds like a lot of people are very invested in them. A story that I know a lot of people are invested in terms of its book series is another Apple original series that's coming. It's Murderbot, which is being dubbed as a comedic thriller, and it will debut on Friday, May 16th on Apple TV+. From Chris and Paul Weitz, based on Martha Wells' book series of the same name, the show stars Alexander Skarsgård as a self-hacking security construct who is horrified by human emotion yet drawn to its vulnerable clients. Murderbot must hide its free will and complete a dangerous assignment when all it really wants is to be left alone to watch futuristic soap operas and figure out its place in the universe. Don't we all, Murderbot? Apple gave us a first look at the titular character, which we will of course link in the show notes. I love the first look is just Murderbot, one with the mask on, one with the mask off. It's a very cool design, I have to imagine, for fans of the book series. It's cool to see it brought to life in this way, even just through these 2 still images. But I think this is one that we're going to be very excited for when it does come.
This looks perfect, so I'm really looking forward to it. Alexander Skarsgård as well. If you're a fan of Succession, you'll know just how good a performer he is. Next up, Owen Wilson-led Apple original feel-good golf series Stick will make its 3-episode premiere Wednesday, June 4th on Apple TV+. Also starring Mark Maron, Peter Dager, Judy Greer, Mariana Trevino, and Lily Kay. The show hails from creator Jason Keller and follows an ex-pro golfer named Bryce Cahill who, after losing his career and his marriage, hatches a plan to mentor a 17-year-old golf phenom called Santi. We'll leave a link to the first look photos in the show notes. I'm not that entrenched in the golf world. I've made my way to a golf course maybe twice in my life, Devon. I hear that there are a lot of stars that are going to make cameos in this, that a lot of golf fans are going to be super over the moon by. And, you know, who can't fall for the charm of Owen Wilson? Today was pretty exciting. I got to visit my first ever hot set for an Apple original series that's going to be making its return at some point. So big thank you to everyone for the hospitality and for making that happen. But there are productions underway everywhere, and one has just wrapped. Monarch Season 2 officially wrapped following a 209-day shoot across 3 countries and 2 continents, and I cannot wait. It's going to be really interesting to see just how quickly we see the second season and how much VFX work was already underway mid-shoot, because a lot of work goes into building out the Monsterverse as we know it, Devon. But yeah, super excited for Monarch's Season 2 return, and who knows what's going to be introduced in that second season.
Yeah, anything is possible, and absolutely can't wait. Moving to in-development news, Apple has landed original series Dilettante from Warner Brothers TV, Berlanti Productions, and writers Dana Brand and Daniel Goldfarb. The series, which is described as a fictionalized coming-of-age story set in the glamorous and cutthroat golden age of magazines in 1990s New York, stars Jeff Daniels and is based on Brown's memoir about working for former Vanity Fair editor Graydon Carter. Also in development is an adaptation of Candace Fox's novel High Wire from executive producer Simone Overend and Scott Free under the production company's first look deal with Apple. The novel takes place in the Australian outback and centers on Harvey Buck, a former soldier racing against time to reach his dying girlfriend. He offers a ride to a stranded traveler named Claire and plunges them both into a nightmare as they are ambushed by a vengeful crew and forced into bomb vests, compelled to commit a series of increasingly dangerous missions under threat of detonation. That sounds like one that's going to get our heart rates up, Sigmund. I'm going to have to monitor my heart rate during that one, and I think that one's just going to stay high throughout the whole series, but it sounds thrilling, and excited to see Apple picking that one up as well.
And from thrilling to thrilled, because Star City continues to fill out its cast, and this is something I know you're thrilled by, and so am I. 6 new members coming aboard this week. Sally McLeod, Agnes O'Casey, Alice Englert, Adam Negatis, Joseph Davies, and Ruby Ashburn Serkis. The series is a spin-off of For All Mankind that tells the alternate history of the space race, but from the Soviet perspective, which is very, very interesting.
Yeah, what got me excited, especially about this particular round of casting news, it really seems like that cast is coming together. Seems like the past few weeks we've had people being added to the show, which is great to see, seeing it moving towards production. But the thing that I was looking forward to most about this series is seeing a young Sergei, and now we know that Joseph Davies is going to be playing him. So that was really cool, and just a little bit of exciting news that I needed as I'm anticipating Star City and, of course, the future of For All Mankind as a whole.
Now, I guess I have one question, and that is, given the limited but growing audience to Apple TV Plus, Do you think that Star City could be successful, given that a lot of people haven't yet dipped their toes into For All Mankind? We've got 4 seasons already to catch up on. And the more this world is built out and we get the spin-offs and everything else, is that going to be perceived as too big? I wouldn't call it a chore, because For All Mankind is amazing, but I think you get where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I do. It's a big thing to take on. You've got these 4 seasons already that cover 40 years of history, and that seems to be continuing on. And it seems like the creative team is being very linear in terms of, they got season 5 of For All Mankind seemingly pretty well far along now, to the point that they can start thinking more about Star City and really getting that group together. So to me, For All Mankind, it seems like it was like the biggest hit of the initial batch of Apple originals, at least from the perspective of people who you wouldn't necessarily expect to be watching Apple TV Plus getting into the service. And it's just been rock solid, I feel like, for the service throughout its run so far. Of course, we don't know exact numbers and that sort of thing, but it's a show that I've never really felt like its future was in question. It's one that can just go on because of its nature with the time jumps and the rotating cast. And, it's cool to be following these people throughout their lives. So to me, of all the Apple TV Plus properties, aside from something like the Monsterverse, which of course is already in and of itself a franchise, this to me had the most franchise potential and has the most potential to spin off into something that can be successful. So you're right. You're taking a relatively small audience in the world of streaming and narrowing it down even more, because not all of the For All Mankind audience is going to come aboard with Star City, but I imagine a good few bit of them will. I also think a spinoff like this, if it's done really well and successfully, it actually could start to create a new audience for the show of people who maybe get into this and then will go back and watch the original series. If they can make this compelling and, something that it's a little bit of a different take and something that can draw in new people to the series. So yeah, I think it does have the potential to be successful in terms of accomplishing what Apple wants it to do. Of course, raw numbers we're never going to know, but they seem super pleased with it so far. And I'm confident that the team behind it can expand the world while maintaining the audience as well and even growing it.
Very cool. And we'll be getting into some other numbers, some scary numbers in a moment. Scary numbers of the good kind. We're going to end on a little bit of rumour. Insider Jeff Snyder reports that Andrew Garfield and Jude Law are in talks to star in the limited series adaptation of Apple original podcast Wild Things, Siegfried and Roy, from John Hoffman and Imagine Television. And as soon as I heard this, I didn't even need to see pictures of this. I thought, oh my God, whoever's job it was in casting for this potential duo did an epic job.
Epic indeed. I don't know that you could think of 2 better people to play these roles. Can we be in agreement that Andrew would be Roy?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm glad we're on the same page there. Of course, this is a rumor and nothing's been signed yet as far as we know, but hopefully we'll be moving that lineup to casting news before too long. Now let's get to those numbers that you hinted at, Sigmund. We don't often get these kinds of reveals from Apple, which means I think this is a pretty big deal for the company to come out and say this. But Apple revealed this week that Severance has surpassed Ted Lasso as the most watched Apple original series worldwide in the month following its season 2 debut. That's a high bar to set. Ted Lasso, a massive success, and one that I didn't think was going to be unseated anytime soon. But Severance, it's just everywhere. Everyone's talking about it. And it really has just exploded in terms of audience, and it's taken the crown. According to Deadline, the show has driven a recent 126% rise in subscriptions, which Apple is happy to see. More people getting into Apple TV Plus to see Severance and check out some other Apple originals as well, we hope. It also landed at number 4 on Nielsen's original streaming chart the week of its return, with 589 million minutes viewed in the U.S. So pretty incredible performance from Severance as it returned. I think it just speaks to not only the excitement from season 1, but the quality of season 2, that people just can't stop talking about it. And the way that team just continues to make Severance something that we're not only thinking about, but having to talk about, discuss, and theorize throughout the week. The show's just absolutely on fire right now, Sigmund.
Yeah. I'm so blown away by this, and it's very, very strange. I don't think I've had this feeling since maybe like being in my teen years or early 20s, when I found that like indie band that blew up, but I was the fan first, and you know, I didn't necessarily want to keep that band to myself, and just was enthralled by every success that came afterwards. That's how I feel about Severance. You know, from the very first moment I got to see a screener, and I was like, wow, this has just blown my mind completely. I hear that this week's episode is going to be a bit of a barnstormer. Maybe not to the same level as episode 4 of this season, but it is the last episode that critics got to see before they got cut off. And so we're all going to be on level playing field from this week. But yeah, just really, really, really cool. That success, I think, is going to help with other Apple originals. And in fact, we've got proof of that this week. Not only did, at the same time, Silo appear in the chart for the 3rd week in a row, this time at number 10 with 396 million minutes viewed at Nielsen, The Gorge has overtaken Wolves as the most watched film premiere in Apple TV Plus history, with Deadline also reporting the film drove double-digit growth for the service and boosted viewership by 80% the weekend of its debut. And for that, all I can say is a massive bravo to everyone at Apple Original Films after what I think was, you know, a difficult kind of reposition last year. Some difficult choices were made, and we're seeing more of a mainstream output, and well, we're seeing the fruit of the labour from the difficult choices that were made by Matt Dentler and his team over at Apple Original Films. So yeah, bravo.
Bravo indeed. And I get the feeling, Sigmund, that with this momentum, this is not going to be the last time we're hearing about these records being broken for Apple TV Plus viewership. I have a feeling that the ceiling's just going to be rising higher and higher as the audience grows.
Maybe that's going to happen this week, because on Wednesday we saw new episodes of Mythic Quest Prime Target, which is doing gangbusters in terms of its views and its popularity on the service, and of course new episode of Love You to Death. But today, not only do we see a new episode of Severance, which again, I'm going to say, stay offline until you see this episode. But we also get a new immersive experience, the 2nd episode from the Boundless series, this time taking us Arctic surfing. Whilst I'm cold, I don't want to see things that are going to make me feel cold. Give me warmth at winter, give me cold when I need to cool down during the summer. Nonetheless, very, very excited. Of course, we also see the premieres today of Surface and Onside Major League Soccer. And this is like my mini highlight because, of course, it brings us nicely into the return of MLS Season Pass and Major League Soccer's 30th season and 3rd season of MOS Season Pass. But MOS Onside is pitched as this 8-episode vehicle that's going to give us unparalleled access to the players and personalities who power the MOS, with electrifying moments and captivating stories captured during the 2024 season. I got to see all 8 episodes. It's coming from Box to Box Films, and I would say for fans of these kind of series, think Drive to Survive, which of course Box to Box Films are famed for introducing on Netflix, but also think Amazon's football/soccer Fly on the Wall series, All or Nothing, which followed a number of clubs, including Arsenal Football Club. MOS Onside is really for the superfan, but I would say for those that are really interested in filmmaking, the cinematography is outstanding. The access that's given is also unprecedented. Series, of course, focuses on Messi's debut, the hometown hero, new franchisees who are really putting the community back into football, which honestly otherwise has been lost in the top flight of many established leagues around the world. The transfer windows, the legacy of the game in the US, and the big decisions both on field, by the coaches, and at boardroom level. So if you're an MLS fan, I think this is a great pre-season view on Friday night as you gear up towards an exciting week on MLS Season Pass. Of course, kicking off on Saturday, once again, the 30th MLS season, third season of MLS Season Pass on Apple TV. And along with all of the features that you've come to expect from the service, this year we're seeing options for multi-view, which is expanding to 5 different games on Apple Vision Pro. We'll keep an eye to see if that expansion also comes to tvOS. And also, look out this opening weekend for the bespoke Apple TV logos on each player shirt's left sleeve, customized to fit each team's crest and color palette. Very, very cool. I had a look to see if this was also being done on the authentic replicas. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be the case. So you know what that means, Devon. I'm manifesting it now. We are going to our first in-person MLS game in 2025 together, just in order to try and nab one of those shirts.
Oh man, that would be an awesome picture and a great experience. Yeah, let's continue to manifest that. Who knows, Sigmund, if we're lucky, we might make it to a Sunday night game, which of course is new this season. This Sunday is the inaugural Sunday Night Soccer at 7 p.m. Eastern. It sees San Diego FC go against the reigning champions, LA Galaxy. It'll be preceded by a new preview show called MLS Countdown and MLS La Previa, and followed by MLS Wrap-Up and MLS El Resumen at their new times. So it's pretty cool. It's not every day you see the debut of a new time slot like this, and this is something Apple's really going all in on for the season. If you're not an MLS Season Pass subscriber, but you are subscribed to Apple TV Plus, this is your opportunity to get a little taste of what the service has to offer. And you can check that out again Sunday night at 7 p.m. Eastern.
And as a bonus, for the first time, available through your cable subscriptions in some cases, and on Android.
There you go. Woo! Wherever you are, MLS Season Pass is there.
All right, let's talk about some extras. Devon, very, very Severance heavy. Where do you want to start?
Let's start with a mysterious countdown that's currently happening on YouTube. By the time this episode releases, it probably will have ended, and everyone will know what it was. But right now, we're just speculating. On the Apple TV YouTube channel, there is a Severance live stream scheduled for tomorrow as we're recording this. The title is MTRT. I have no idea what that means. These acronyms that Lumen comes up with, I can't even begin to break them down. I mean, Ortbo, it's just impossible to predict what it's going to be. Apple's hinting on Instagram this could be some kind of collaboration with Odessa. And we don't know exactly what that means. Are we getting new music? Are we getting some kind of music video? Is this a dance experience like globally? That could be a lot of fun. But we're speculating. By the time you listen to this, you'll know what it is. But either way, we'll leave a link to it. So if you missed it, you can experience it on replay. We also got another Lumen management program video. If you're wanting to become a better manager, don't follow the advice of these videos. Okay, Lumen is not a company that you want to emulate. But if you want to learn more about how they work, you can learn about boosting team morale by watching this video from Mr. Milchick and Miss Wong.
Someone you probably do want to emulate, at least I do, is Zane Lowe at Apple Music, who is one of the best interviewers on this earth. And he had the opportunity to interview Adam Scott this past week. You can check out the full interview, I believe, on both the Apple Music YouTube channel and on Apple Music within the radio section where you'll find a full video interview to check out. Also this week in extras, Surface Season 2, Phil Dunster as Quint Huntley, alongside an inside look that we'd already mentioned earlier in this episode, and a bunch of extras for The Gorge. The film's plot in 30 seconds with Scott Derrickson, a ASMR session with Miles Teller and Anya Taylor-Joy, along with an emoji recap, which is very, very interesting. And finally, for Mythic Quest fans, this week's After Midnight features Mythic Quest stars Jesse Ennis, Ashley Birch, and Danny Pudi. After Midnight, available on CBS in the United States. I'm not sure if it's available to international audiences, but it's an American late-night comedy panel game show hosted by Taylor Tomlinson and executive produced by Stephen Colbert. So very, very cool. One to check and add to your list. I know, of extras, maybe of TV app highlights. And that's what we're going to get into here. Loads of really cool movie releases this week, and I'm just going to mention them by title because really you should already have these on your watch list already. The Brutalist just had a fantastic week at the BAFTAs, alongside a bit of a late Valentine's like horror flick, Companion, which I've heard only good things about, on the list of things to watch. The wonderful animation Dogman for the kids in your life, and The Last Showgirl, which is the real comeback for Pamela Anderson in a fantastic dramatic role. Then you've got Love Me, which I can't remember what its title was at last year's Sundance Film Festival, but a lot of people had a lot of promise for this film. It stars Kristen Stewart and Stephen Yeun, and is a story about a boy that meets satellites. I'll leave it at that, but looks really, really cool. Very interesting concept. Give the link in the show notes a click and check that one out. And finally, from movies to TV series, my highlight, Pixar's Win or Lose on Disney Plus. Looks like a great animated series that debuted earlier this week. And, you know, maybe there's something on Netflix, but their stance is clear, and so is mine.
Those aren't TV app highlights anymore, Sigmund. They ripped them out.
Let's end this episode with some Up Next picks, Devon. This is not an Up Next pick available in the TV app just yet, but available to pre-order at least.
Yeah, it's available to pre-order, and it's one that you can go see in theaters, which is what I would recommend people go do. That's what I did this past weekend. Had a great time. Actually got to see the F1 trailer on the big screen beforehand, which was great. I loved that. That was a fantastic experience. I can't get enough of that trailer. But the feature that I went to see was Captain America Brave New World. Of course, the latest in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the Captain America series. This one's directed by Julius Ona, stars Anthony Mackie as Captain America, Danny Ramirez, Shira Haas, Carl Lumbly, Zoe Rockmore, Giancarlo Esposito, Tim Blake Nelson, and Harrison Ford himself. I was really excited to see Harrison Ford joining the MCU, coming in, playing a character that has previously appeared in the series, but in a recasting. He did a great job as Thaddeus Ross, and really loved getting to see him. This is not the most highly rated MCU project, and that's something that I think can often turn people away. But as a longtime fan, I personally enjoyed it quite a bit. I thought Anthony Mackie did a great job heading up his own film, and it's great to see him take the lead and really step into this role. Of course, the whole Captain America thing within the universe, the question of can somebody other than Steve Rogers be Captain America, mirrors in the real world people asking about Chris Evans leaving the series and can someone else take on that role. I thought Anthony Mackie did a great job. There's lots of payoff for fans of The Incredible Hulk, a movie from 2008, and it just shows you kind of the care that's being put into the storytelling over time, and that these creators don't forget things. They don't leave these empty plot threads for no reason. And as someone who's been asking a lot of questions about that movie since it came out way back when I was in high school, it made me happy to see some of those threads come back around. And it's actually a great time to be a Hulk fan between this and She-Hulk and some other projects that are coming out. The Hulk is a big player in the MCU right now, and that whole world is really being incorporated, which I love. There's a little bit of table setting for upcoming features, but for the most part, this is for the fans. This is just some payoff and some fun. It's not a ton of just dangling threads out there, which I appreciate. Sometimes I think the MCU can get a little too far into that, and this one feels more self-contained and tying things up rather than setting things up. So I'd say it's a good year to be a Marvel movie fan. We've got this one. We've got Fantastic Four to look forward to, and of course the Thunderbolts, featuring another fan favorite, Bucky. And so, yeah, I'm happy that Marvel is more of a presence in the theater industry this year than they were last year. Been a bit of a dry spell in the movie sense. Enjoying the series as well, but it's great to go to the big screen and see your favorite heroes up there. So if you're an MCU fan, and especially a Hulk fan, definitely check out Captain America Brave New World, which is now playing in theaters.
Very cool. And I'm glad Harrison Ford is getting his bag as well. So
for sure.
If nothing else, I'm very happy for him on that. My pick is a little bit different. I guess in some ways the Marvel universe is kind of Shakespearean. So that's my link into my pick, which is Grand Theft Hamlet. A feature documentary about two out-of-work actors attempting the impossible task of mounting a full production of Hamlet inside the ruthless and unpredictable world of Grand Theft Auto, shot all entirely in-game. This is something that I got to see at the London Film Festival. It's finally coming to everyone via Mubi, and I believe is having a PVOD release sometime after you've listened to this. But the synopsis is great. It's January 2021. The UK has just entered its third lockdown and all theatres remain closed. But for actors Sam and Mark, the future looks bleak. As the pandemic drags on, Mark, who lives alone, is increasingly socially isolated, while Sam is panicking about how he's going to support his family. They channel their midlife frustrations by immersing their avatars in a horrifically violent yet beautifully rendered virtual world of Grand Theft Auto Online. They steal cars and shoot strangers, but also find moments of calm reflection, walking through meadows and wildflowers, which I didn't even realise was possible in this game. In one gaming session, they stumble across a theatre and have an idea. Why not stage Hamlet inside the game? Well, there are several reasons why not. Chiefly that most people in the game are intent on ruthless annihilation, not polite appreciation of a theatrical production. This is a film, again, I got to experience this once. I'm really looking forward to checking this out again. It's truly inspiring because it adds proof to the concept that non-conventional storytelling is still very much accessible and within reach with just a little bit of imagination. We talk a lot about filmmaking from how many people do you need in a crew to tech and everything else, and we talk about the accessibility of filmmaking as well through iPhone. You don't even need that these days, and this film proves that concept. So yeah, very, very cool. Grand Theft Hamlet, now available on Mubi and I think also on PVOD, so search for it in the TV app. I think you're going to be overjoyed with what it gives you in return.
I love that. That's a really cool concept and not at all what I was expecting when I just saw the title, Grand Theft Hamlet. That's amazing and definitely one to check out. Well, that's all from us this week. Thank you so much for listening. We appreciate you taking the time to spend with us every week. Of course, we always love to hear from you, what you're thinking, what you're watching. And if you want to contact us, you can reach out on social media via the links in the show notes. You can email the show or send us an iMessage to magic@macstories.net.
We'll be back next week covering the world of Apple TV and taking a trip to the most overrun emergency room in Berlin. So until then, stay safe, watch some Apple TV, play some Apple Arcade, watch some MOS, and have a great week.